Hey, it's Marthea Pitts, the MSW coach, and I'm back for another episode of my podcast, Macro Social Work Your Way. And today I want to talk about three ways that I commonly see social workers devaluing their work experience in their career and why it's so dangerous and could possibly be the thing that's holding you back in your career. So if you are new here, my name is Marthea Pitts. I'm known on the social work streets as the MSW coach, and I help social workers pivot their careers from case management jobs using just the degrees that they have and the case management experience that they possess to macro social work roles where they are two to three times or more their social work salaries and doing super aligned work for the populations and issues that they're most passionate about. As of today, I've helped well over 200 social workers since I've been officially keeping count. And I do that inside of my group career coaching program called the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator. If you are new around these parts, click the link. It's a link somewhere, wherever you're watching this or listening to this, there's a link below this play button, or if you're watching it on YouTube, and visit macroandpaid.com. Grab my free e-course at macroandpaid.com. It's a good place to start to learn about what macro social work is, what it entails, what are the job titles that macro social work jobs go by, potential employers, salaries. I know y'all love that. Y'all love a good conversation about salaries and job titles and more. And the one thing that I can tell you now, which is a very common question when people first find me, is do I need a license? And no, you don't need a license to do macro level work because macro level work does not typically happen only in places where social workers traditionally work. Social workers are not the only professionals that do macro level work. Accountants do macro level work. Public health professionals do macro level work, which you all usually know about. Business professionals, scientists, chemists, all of the above. So grab the free e-course. It's a great place to start developing your macro lens. So let's jump into it, right? Because I just wrapped up cohort 2020, cohort 21 of the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator. If you're new around these parts, I have a 3-month group career coaching program called the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator, where I teach social workers how to identify, apply, and interview for their dream macro social work job. If you want to know what like makes me qualified to do this and how I'm able to achieve such high success rates with my coaching clients, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can look at all of the macro jobs that I've had, where I started. I started myself in a case management job. I've only ever had two case management jobs since being a social worker, and one of them was as a workforce development career counselor in American Job Center, right? So I've helped thousands of people at this point get employment, not just social workers. So go and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there under my name, Marthea Pitts. And yeah, let me know you found me through my podcast episode. So I want to talk today about three of the most common ways I see social workers, and I'm looking at my notes because I'm a note taker, okay? So I sketched this out. I want to talk about three of the most common ways that I see social workers devalue their career experiences and why this is happening, right? So we are in a place and time, right? I don't know when you found me, how long you've been watching me from afar or following my work and all of the things. But one of the things that you will hear me talk about over and over and over and over again is the importance of understanding the value of your experiences so you then are able to better find aligned job opportunities where you are not ending up in a situation where you're severely underemployed, right? And the other important reason of learning and understanding the value of your experiences is so that you're able to clearly articulate that in your resume, and in interviews. And then also, once you land your macro job, as you progressively advance up your career ladder, right? And so we are in a time and place right now in the job market where the value of your experiences, if you leverage them correctly and know how to package them up in a way that appeals to macro level employers, really can yield you a return. I call it flipping your experiences, right? Flipping your experiences. It's a way for you to flip your experience and really like 10x your earlier career experiences and get a super aligned job where not only the pay is great, but all of the other things that come along with the job, be it tangibly or intangibly, where you have autonomy, where you're working in a good work culture, where you are again doing super aligned work that aligns with your values, that's not causing you moral injury, where you agree with the leadership, where you feel as though your work is impactful, where you're not being overworked, where you are again being compensated the way that you should be. And so it's important for you to understand the value of your experience, especially in today's job market, because we are in the middle of a major shift, right? There's a lot going on in the job market, not just for social workers, but for all job seekers, career seekers, be it degree or non-degree. And so now more than ever, it's important for you to really understand the value of your experiences and how to leverage them to get the job opportunities you want. And then even more than that, to really build in a career sustainability plan for yourself where you are not at risk of having your position eliminated or losing employment, or what I always like to talk about, becoming the dinosaur, right? Because we are in a space and time in the US where work is shifting to start looking drastically different, right? It's not only for tech people. It ain't only for, the STEM people. It is for every profession, right? We have the integration of AI is taking over. Language learning models are big. The use of them in day-to-day positions for regular frontline people like case managers, even service workers, they are having to use these LLMs, right? And having to learn and adapt to use this technology. And so I want to talk about the importance of understanding and being able to effectively articulate the experience you have, and but under all of that, understanding the correct value to attach to it, right? But before we can talk about that, which I have tons of episodes talking about that, but before we, and I'll do an updated version at some point in time on that conversation. But before we can talk about that, I wanted to have a heart-to-heart conversation with you. That's what I call them when it's time to we got to have a come to Jesus meeting, right? Because some of y'all be tripping, and I don't be understanding what be going on. And so this when I was getting ready, I was like, I'm gonna talk to them about three of the most common ways that I see people devalue their experience and the underlying root of what's happening there when you do these things, right? If you're new here, I'm a why person. That's generally a characteristic, a telltale sign that you're meant to do macro level work because you always are going to find out the why, or asking why, or doing research on your own, even when it's not a part of your job, to figure out the why. You feel incomplete when someone gives you a task or duty or gives you instruction on something, but they don't explain like the implications of this, what is the root reason behind it, things like that, right? So I just want you to know that's one of the characteristics. So I'm a why person in my personal life, not just in my professional life, but that makes me a great macro social worker. So I want to talk about why you do it, and then because I want to help you self-identify if you are guilty of doing it. And then I'm going to give you a strategy at the end to start doing in baby steps so you can try to address it. Because at the end of the day, it's ultimately holding you back in your career in some way, shape, form, or fashion, be it tangibly or intangibly. So, what I mean by intangibly, it could appear, what it will look like or feel like for you is that your level of career confidence won't be as high as it should be because you're guilty of devaluing your experiences. So you don't feel confident showing up in the world of work. You don't feel confident showing up for jobs over and beyond frontline direct service positions. You don't feel confident going after jobs with big titles and large salaries, or jobs with increased level of responsibility, even though you have a deep desire for doing that. Tangibly, what it will look like is, I'm gonna get into some of them today, but it looks like your behaviors, your mindset, or like more so your behaviors in the workplace, how you talk about your work, things like that. So let's jump into it because I'm kind of jumping into my list. Stick to the notes, Marthea. Right? I'm excited because it's finally like Christmas weather here, and I love Christmas. I love Christmas. And it feel like Christmas this year. And so I'm kind of super excited because it's been hot where I live for the last several weeks, even though it's snowing and freezing cold in other states. It's been hot and it's finally cold. And so I'm super excited about that. And I'm gonna go do me some winter light activities in a little bit. So let's jump into it. Okay. So the first most common way that I see social workers devalue their career experiences is that they undervalue everyday impact, right? So what I mean by that, because I'm a plain language type of person, okay? So what I mean by that is you may minimize, or not may. This is for the person who it applies for. What that looks like in real time is that you minimize the work that you've done or currently are doing, be it verbally, in writing, or even like non-verbally, like just with your body language. So I'm gonna explain that. So what I mean by verbally, right, is like, let me do it in order. Yeah, I'll do it in this order. Verbally, what that will look like is in team meetings, when it's time to give an update about your caseload, or even if you're a supervisor or a manager and you're giving an update about your team, or heck, you could even just be talking in passing to your supervisor about like what you're currently working on with your caseload. It's not like a formal meeting. You don't go into detail of any kind about the over and beyond activities that you've been doing to move your customers, your participants, your clients, whatever you call them, from point A to point B, right? You talk about your work in a very like non-dimensional way. So I'll give you an example. So maybe you have a person on your caseload who requires intensive level support, right? And for those who are new here, I call everything case management when you are doing one-on-one work with people or even small communities. Even if you licensed, even if you ain't licensed, I don't care. It's all case management work. It's all direct service work, okay? So let's say, for example, you've been working with Bill for the last 4 months, right? And Bill is one of your intensive cases where everybody knows in your program that Bill requires a higher level of support, right? They probably, because my people that listen to me, that follow my podcast, y'all are superstars. So most likely Bill was given to you by your supervisor, or maybe transferred to you from another case manager's caseload, because they already know that Bill requires a higher level of service that no one really else is capable of delivering other than you, right? You are good with the people that require intensive support, right? Okay, so you get Bill on your caseload, right? Bill has been on everybody else's caseload, and for the life of them, they cannot get Bill to, let's say Bill is a veteran. For the life of them, they cannot get Bill into employment, right? They connected him to housing. He got into his housing. They got him transportation. They got him connected. You got him connected to the other caseworkers have gotten him connected to the primary care provider that he needs. But everyone is struggling with getting Bill into employment. Okay. So Bill gets on your caseload. You serve Bill. You do your initial assessment with Bill. You identify his barriers. What are the issues? What's really holding Bill back? And what you identify is that there aren't any like barriers in place that are significant enough to justify why Bill has not been in employment sooner, right? That you all have the resources in place to get him there and all of the things. However, you identify that maybe Bill wants to do a specific type of job, or maybe that Bill needs like a certain type of tool or a resource or something to get that type of job. And that's what's been holding Bill back from doing it. Or maybe Bill wants to relocate back to wherever state he came from with his family to get a job, right? So you go over and beyond to troubleshoot what is the real issue for Bill as to why he has not been able to effectively enter employment, and we got this job lined up for him, right? So from there, that already is a sign of itself, because you didn't approach Bill as the intensive case where Bill just don't want to work. No, you went over and beyond and you troubleshooted the situation. You probably went as far as like making a dozen phone calls, even though that's not within your scope of work, to secure like what Bill needs to effectively enter employment. You probably came in early on some days. You probably stayed late on some days. You probably even drove Bill to the work site or to the uniform shop to get the uniforms he need. You probably went to the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer of your organization, and asked them to make some type of exception for Bill, because Bill really wants to go back to the states of Arizona to live with his family, but he needs a bus pass. And once he gets there, I've already talked to the agency over in Arizona and I set it up for Bill so Bill can immediately transition into their services, and they already have employment lined up for him. All of that is over and beyond, right? All of that is over and beyond. I'm going to keep repeating it. However, when your supervisor asks you in the break room, or in your weekly supervision meeting, or in your check-in meeting, or in the team meeting, how is the case going with Bill? You say it's great, it's doing well, Bill is going to be entering employment, and everything's going to work out, right? If you all of that stuff I named for you earlier, and that was a real scenario, just switch out Bill for a woman and I was a DV counselor, right? But it wasn't employment. My person wanted to move to the state where their family lived. And I went over and beyond to get her and her, I think she had like 8 kids, to that other state. That was over and beyond what I was required to do, right? However, let's get back to you. When you talk about it, you talk about it in a very non-dimensional, nondescript way. I'm not saying that you should take 10 minutes to come up with a scenario of the work that you've been doing with Bill. However, you should be retelling the story about the process that you've had to go through to handle Bill's case, right? When you are nondescript in that nature, it leaves people with little information and context to assess your contributions in your position. And what you're silently doing over time is devaluing your experience and your contributions in the workplace. And that is dangerous, right? Because your supervisor already know you a rock star, a superstar. That's why she gave you Bill. However, when you talk about it, you talk about it like, I ain't really had to do nothing with Bill. He good. No, you've come in late. You stayed early. You made 100 phone calls. You sent off documentation. You took Bill to the driver's license office. You got Bill. You called over and developed a partnership with an organization that wasn't existing to get Bill and make certain that he had a good like transition service in place for him. You want to talk about those things. And again, the reason you want to do that is so that people can accurately assess your level of value to the organization, right? So that's the first way. And I feel like I kind of went on the deep end on that descriptor on an example, but y'all know I love a good example. I love a good real world example. So I had to give you, okay? So the second most common way that I see social workers devalue their career experiences is that they struggle with I wrote it two different ways. I'll say it this way. They struggle with accepting recognition, but also what I wanted to tag on the back end of that is a large part of the reason why you struggle with accepting recognition from like your supervisor saying, job well done, Kim, job well done, David, right? Is because you don't know how to accurately identify your big deal contributions. I'll say it that way. That's not how I got it wrote on paper, right? I was talking about transferable skills. But what I talk about with my coaching clients is that you don't know how to accurately identify when you've done a big deal thing, right? You walk around thinking that what you do on a day-to-day basis, everybody else is doing it that same way, and that your contribution is just running a meal and status quo when it's not. That's why your supervisor gave you bill in that first scenario because no one else on your team had the competency, the capability to effectively serve bill, thus making you the subject matter expert of intensive. I try not to use the word hard to serve, but your organization may use that. But we'll call it intensive. I ain't gonna use that term. Intensive support cases, right? So when your team, when your supervisor, when your manager, when Bill himself, when the caseworker at the other organization or the supervisor at the other nonprofit that you're partnering with give you kudos for a job well done, you shrug it off, right? What that will look like is you quickly change the subject. Everybody's clapping for you, everybody giving you kudos, everybody telling, and I'm telling you these things because I used to do it myself. Okay. I was guilty of number two. Still kind of am, but I'm learning to sit in being recognized for my accomplishments, achievements, and contributions. Right. So, Bill, they come in patting you on your back. Kim, you did a wonderful job. I am so excited about this new partnership with the organization in Arizona that you developed with Bill. It's working out for him tremendously. We're going to look, we're doing some future work with them. Instead of you being like, "Oh, okay," or not even saying nothing back or looking like a deer in headlights, you need to sit in the fact that you excelled in that thing, right? And take ownership for it. This is not the time for you to say, my team did blah, blah, blah. This is not the time for you to say, um, oh, that was no problem. That was easy. It was the easy fix. No big deal. No, it was a big deal. So much so that they're coming to you to acknowledge your contribution. So that's the second way that I most commonly see social workers devaluing their experiences, is that they don't accept recognition well. They struggle with it, right? They struggle with it and they discount their contributions. I'm gonna write that down. So I have it when I recap with you. Okay. The third way that I see social workers devalue their career experiences is that they compare themselves to others and always try to appear perfect. The reason I looked off for a moment because there's a little nuance to the whole comparing of yourself to others. It's not in a glaring way comparing yourself. You know how like I don't even know an example. You know how you might be like, oh, that person is beautiful. Then and compare them to you, right? Not in that kind of way. It's very subtle. It's very covert in nature, like how you compare yourself. And I see it with people when I'm coaching them in a group setting. I didn't say that either. Like everything that I'm naming, I've seen this recurring theme with the hundreds of social workers that I've coached. That's why I'm talking about it with you today, because it's a thing, right? So it's very covert in nature. What it could look like is if you were in a group and everybody's sharing out whatever their like thing is that they did this week. Let's say you're in a team meeting and everybody is sharing out what their contribution or what their thing is that they did this week, as far as like an update. When when someone shares before you and it's your time to share, you preface what your share out with, well, what I did isn't as great as what Tammy did, or my stuff wasn't as big of a deal as Bob's, right? It's always like an underhand. You know how like when people talking about you, but they passive aggressive with it, right? Real covert, undercover. You do that with yourself, and I can't stand when y'all do that. Like I used to stop somebody in the Sunday coaching call that I just had with cohort 21 of the micro to macro career. So I was like, I liked everything you said except for that one piece. So I started to stop you, but I let you finish. Like, I don't, why do y'all do that? You don't need to make an announcement about your stuff, not comparing with with what you call it. Wasn't that a candy bar back in the day? With what you call it, right? Nobody don't care about that, right? Because when you're doing that, you're undermining your value. You're undervaluing your own self. Don't nobody else got to do it. What y'all call that? Being self-deprecating. I'm not clinical, right? But like the theory, the idea is talk about yourself before somebody else get the chance to talk about you. Why would you do that? I don't want nobody to talk about. I want to talk about myself. One, I don't care about nobody else talking about me. Two, I ain't finna talk about myself before somebody else get the opportunity, right? So I see that with social workers, and I don't even think y'all, I know for a fact, y'all don't even realize you do it because it's so pervasive, it's so deeply ingrained in you that you don't even realize that you do it. But I see it the minute you open your mouth. Right? That's one way. Another way I've seen people do it is in their personal lives, right? People, I have very intimate conversations with my coaching clients, and this just ain't the people that I work with inside of the accelerator. It's also people that I career coach in my real life, in my personal life, right? You compare yourself with what the people around you are doing. Or you compare yourself with people that you have parasocial relationships with, people that you don't even know in real life, but you see them on the internet and you're like, oh my gosh, she has 15 letters after her name, and all I have is a BSW degree. Or all I have is an MSW degree. But she got 15 letters after her name. This is a real situation. Okay, that's a real situation. So you compare, and I'm like, do you know them? Do you even know how they're using all of those credentials that's after their name? Do you even know if they have a high quality, high paying job? Do you know? Because people get out in the world, not just on the internet, but in real life too, and fake the funk. Ain't it so they used to say back in the day? Fake the funk. Fake the funk. Pretend like they love their job when they hate their job. And here you go in the corner romanticizing what they got going on. You don't even know. And I just want to say, like, you are undervaluing yourself. And over time, you're teaching others to undervalue you. Because the hard truth is, right? The hard truth is a lot of the situations that the not so great situations. Now, this is not a catch all for everybody. So calm down, chopsticks. Right? Well, my ex used to say, calm down, chopsticks. I, oh, chopsticks. Because I used to get real. like we doing chopsticks. I couldn't stand when he would like calm down and he got me worked up. Like calm down chopsticks because I'm like chopping at him like a dog. But anyway, I don't even know where I was gonna go. See that trying to be funny, trying to make y'all laugh. Here I go. But I really can't stand it. When you're in an argument with your person and they tell you to calm down, that makes me madder. Don't do that. Oh my gosh. But anyway, so yeah, like comparing yourself, to, that's how you undervalue yourself. And over time, you teach others to undervalue you, right? Or to devalue you, rather. I'm kind of using those words interchangeably, but it's devalue you. Like they don't see, this is why, like, oh, what I was going to say is the hard truth is that a lot of people find themselves in not so great work situations, like work environment, work treatment situations. Again, this is not for everyone, but for a subset of the population of the people that I talk to, a lot of them admit that the not so great situations they were experiencing in their work, like environment, were brought on by how they showed up and behaved in their jobs from day one, right? So, an example is your supervisor, your manager, your team gives you all of their stuff to do, right? Even though you have your own caseload, your own responsibilities, your own things that you're responsible for as far as scope of work. But then when I asked them to take me back to how did they show up in their job from the first day that they started their job, and they verbalized to me like before I even knew my job, I was volunteering for stuff and I was telling them I would do it. And it's like before you even knew what you were technically responsible for, you were already taking on additional work. So it set like a precedent of okay, we're gonna give them all of the work because they like to do it anyway. So then when you get a year into the thing, 2 years into the thing, and you are to your wits end now because they keep giving you all the work and you get mad, but you got to get mad at yourself because you created the monster, right? I'm guilty of doing that in my personal life with someone super close to me. And that was like before I turned 35. I always say when I turned 35, it's like I became a real adult. Even though I had a 15-year-old at that time, I feel like I became a real adult when I turned 35. And it was like the scales fell from my eyes, and I realized I was viewing the world from a very childish, childish, childish lens. That I was looking at the world through very rose-colored glasses. It was an awakening that I had, right? And I've since then like saw others who've hit the age of 35 experience that same like paradigm shift. Okay, but anyway, so when I turned 35, I realized that the dynamic that was causing me so much uneasiness with this person in my personal life, I had created that, right? I created it. I used to get so upset with them because anytime they would come over to my house, the expectation was that I was going to give them my things. It could be something that I just had bought brand new, never wore, never used, never touched. The expectation was that I'm gonna give to them. They would come and they would literally like just pick up stuff and not ask. But then when I went back and I looked at the beginning, because I'm a very self-reflective person, right? I spend lots of time self-reflecting to figure out where was the breakdown, what was my responsibility in it all, what else was going on. Like I'm super self-reflective. So when I did my work and I went back and I looked at like Marthea in the beginning, when they first started coming over to your house, you would go in your room and in your closet and pack up bags of stuff and send them home with it every time. You would do that every single time that they came over. What I identified for myself was that I was trying to essentially like get them to love me. That's what I was trying to do. This is a relative. Get them to love me and see me, right? So if my the things that I have make you see me, happy to be around me, love me, I'm gonna give it to you, even though unknowingly I didn't know that's what I was doing. So fast forward, we're years into this behavior. It wasn't every week, it wasn't every day, it probably was like every few months, but we're years into this consistent behavior. When I go to Marthea house, she gonna give me bags of stuff that she not even haven't even used, right? So then when I hit 35, probably a little bit before 35, because it was way before 35. But I started getting upset of like, why every time you come over here, the expectation is you're gonna get some stuff. But I couldn't blame nobody but me. Because the truth is, it's human behavior to get used to stuff real fast. I know I'm guilty of that. Like I always used to tell the men that I dated, like, don't start knowing me because I get used to stuff real fast. Honestly, you do it for me one time, I'm used to it. That's the expectation. And if you tell me it ain't gonna happen again or you won't do it again, we're gonna have a problem. So it's only human nature to get used to things. So if you started your job, if you came in the job taking on all of the extra work, you can't get mad at the people because now they're giving you all the extra work. You set that precedent. So I wanted to share that because like comparing yourself to others and always trying to appear perfect, I kind of went on a tangent with that. But comparing yourselves to others and always trying to appear perfect really devalues your experience, right? And a large part of why you create these not so great dynamics in the workplace, for example, taking on all the work, now they overloading you, all of the things, is because you're trying to appear like the perfect professional. Ooh, look how I wrapped that all back together. Like, but trying to appear like the perfect professional. And what you're doing is devaluing yourself at the same time. Because what happens simultaneously and silently is that you are diminishing your career confidence. Also, at the same time, people don't take you serious in the workplace, right? So, what that looks like tangibly is there are job opportunities available internal in your organization, and like, nobody puts a bug in your ear and say, we would love for you to apply. Or maybe you apply and you get passed over for the promotion. It's because you've devalued them because you didn't understand your own value. Right. So if you don't understand your own value and you willing to do all of the things, or if you're trying to appear perfect, or if you are showing up in ways where you're comparing yourself to others, they're not gonna attach any value to you too. I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna listen back to it on a replay because I kind of went on a tangent, but I wanted to share that because again, a lot of the things that you're experiencing in real time, if you really went back and were brutally honest with yourself, you were complicit in it in some kind of way. Either you did not set clear boundaries from day one in your position, or you blurred the boundaries, or you showed up less than confident and didn't understand your value in the workplace. So I wanted to share all of that because when you are devaluing your career experiences, it's a slippery, dangerous slope. Because again, I kind of touched on some of the whys, and I'm looking because it's getting dark. I kind of touched on some of the whys earlier. Is that it diminishes your ability to be able to really effectively assess your value in the current job market, right? So what that looks like is you'll see a job, you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. I like that title. I like the population they're working with. But then you'll immediately dismiss your ability to qualify for the job. I don't have experience for that. I can't do that. Blah, 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 blah. It also can show up intangibly as far as your career confidence, where you don't even click open or look at jobs with large sounding job titles or large substantial salaries attached to them. Then you are like than you've historically made in the past, right? So if it's director, blah, 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 or assistant director, such and such, and the role is paying like 40,000 above what you make currently, you won't even look at it, right? Another way that it shows up is in your interviews. Let's get before that, in your resume, even though, like, you probably are like, I can write a macro resume, but you sit down and you write your macro resume, and in your resume you have three very nondescript bullets, or your resume is heavy case management focused, right? Again, even though you are doing these high level experiences, right? I've done tons of podcast episodes where I've named some high level experiences. You still are unable to identify them for yourself. But more than that, you're unable to translate that to employers, not just on your resume, but in your actual interviews as well, if you're progressing to that round. Also, when you show up in interviews, you show up very unsure about yourself. That's one of the major things that I do with my coaching clients is around preparing them for macro level interviews, but it's not just the technical strategy of it, it's also the persona that they have to take on in these interviews to show that they are a confident professional, because you are not just being judged on the words that come out of your mouth and the words you got on your resume. You're being assessed. Let me use that word. You're being assessed by how you show up in the space and your level of confidence that you are portraying and conveying to be able to lead these high level initiatives, conversations, and things depending on the scope of macro work that you're going up for, right? So you're being assessed on that as well. Whereas in case management jobs, they just want, in the words of one of my coaching clients, they just want a warm body with a pulse. Right. So they're not assessing you on your professional persona, your ability to lead a room, your ability to command attention, your ability to show up as an expert on the thing. However, in macro jobs, they do. So it's the trickle down effect. When you start at the top, devaluing yourself, it slowly bleeds into the other areas, the other areas of how you have to show up in these spaces to get these jobs. So one of the things that I want you to do, I do got some homework for you. I'm gonna wrap all of this up. I need to shut my house down because it's dark outside. But one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to right now, when you are listening to this podcast episodes, I want you to get a pen and a piece of paper or your favorite note taking device. You put in your notes app. I don't care, but take 5 minutes just for yourself. You done gave everybody and their mama 500 hours of yourself this week. Give yourself 5 minutes to do this one quick activity, right? What I want you to do is I want you to write down one example of your work that you feel made a real difference, even if it felt small at the time, air quotes, small to you, even if it felt small, because no work that you do is small. So I want you to get your pen, paper, or note taking device, and I want you to write down one example of your work that you feel made a real difference, even if it felt small at the time. And I want you to write it down and I want you to read it out loud to yourself. And then I want you to find another person to read it out loud to. And I want you to sit in it and understand that whatever you wrote on that paper is proof that your career experience has value. Why? Because you were able to identify it as a valuable thing that equated to making a real difference, right? So the value that you attached to it was this made a difference. So example, it could be the time that I got Bob, I think that was what his name was, Bob, placed into employment in Arizona after I got him relocated there. To you, that made a difference in Bob's life, right? So that is the value that's attached to it. So value can be intrinsic or extrinsic, right? It could be for you or for someone else, right? And then I want you to start building the small habit of recognizing your work And when you feel you made a real experience and understand that that real experience equates to value in your resume, in your interviews, in your future career endeavors. And that you, when you take it all and you package up in a pretty bow and you have clarity about the macro job that you want, you're able to then take all of those experiences once you have them all collected, you're able to strategically leverage them to get the macro job that you want. Okay. So I am actively preparing for enrollment in cohort 22 of the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator. If you want to work with me inside of the accelerator to learn how to effectively identify all of your valuable experiences, how to effectively translate those experiences into a high yielding resume to get macro social work jobs on repeat, I invite you to come work with me. Click the link down in the episode show notes or in the description box and visit Macro and Paid, MACROAND, as in David, PAID.com. Macro and Paid, because we get paid money over here. And I want you to click the third link down from the top and join the wait list. Registration for cohort 22 of the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator will be opening in January sometime. I haven't officially released the date, but join the wait list. When you join the wait list, you can schedule a 20-minute conversation with me to come ask questions to figure out if you're a good fit for the program. I'll give you all of the details about what we do inside of the program. I'll explain the logistics of registration. I'll talk about the investment. I'll talk about finance options. It's a great opportunity to just come talk to me one on one about what you got going on in your career. Because a lot of y'all be trying to self-diagnose yourself. Not that I'm clinical. Maybe I shouldn't have used that word, but self-assess yourself and you don't have enough career information to make those solid decisions. Right? So come talk to me. Let's talk about it. Let's see if you're a good fit. Maybe you're not a good fit for the cohort that's getting ready to open up, but maybe you will want to come in the next cohort. Next year, I'm only planning to have two cohorts, one in the spring and one in the fall. So if the spring one ain't your thing, then you could come into the fall, but you won't know until you come talk to me. Plus, I don't work with everybody. So you're interviewing me, I'm interviewing you. Okay, for fit. I work really hard to curate the community that we have inside of the accelerator, and I'm working really hard to keep it the way it is. We are a group of change makers. We are not a group of burnt out social workers sitting in the room complaining about the woes of being a social worker. We are actively strategizing about how to future proof our careers, how to create impacts in the world for the populations and issues that we're most passionate about, and how to move the needle closer to progress. So if you want to join us, join us. Visit macroandpaid.com, join the wait list. I'll talk to you next time. Happy macro career planning. Bye.